Hey friends, welcome back to Jenny Food and My Kitchen. If you've been here for a minute, then maybe you've seen my cinnamon sugar quick bread recipe. That is a good one. If you haven't, you should check it out. But every now and then, with my good quiet cup of coffee, that's my favorite way to start the day, I like a little something something. I'm talking about just a sweet kind of indulgent treat just to have quietly as I begin the day and think on all the things I'm about to do. So today I'm just bringing you along as I am making myself a quick sweet treat, and I am talking cranberry white chocolate scones. Doesn't that sound delicious? I'm already looking forward to tomorrow's coffee. Let's make this. All right, friends, I've got all of our ingredients gathered for these glorious little scones that I'm going to enjoy with my coffee tomorrow. My quiet cup of coffee. I have flour, sugar, salt, and of course baking powder, and we're going to put that together and kind of mix that up first. And then we are going to cut 2 sticks of butter into our dry ingredients. Now, you can either use a box grater and kind of do it that way, grate that into your flour, and then mix everything by hand. Or you can do what I'm going to do today, and you can use your food processor and kind of cut your butter into your dry ingredients doing that. And then we'll put those in a bowl. I'll mix in my heavy cream. Now I have dried cranberries. Now this is a fresh bag, so I recommend if you're going to make these to use something fresh that hasn't been opened, because these will be softer and a little sweeter than something that has been like half used in the back of your pantry somewhere that has kind of hard. You want something just real soft and pleasing to the chew for this. And you can always swap cranberries or another piece of dried fruit if you'd like. And then of course I have my white chocolate chips, white vanilla chips, however you want to say that. I have white chips. And then lastly, I have some powdered sugar. Now there's 2 ways to finish these scones. Once you get these ready for the baking sheet, you can either brush them with some heavy cream and then sprinkle some like raw sugar or turbinado sugar on top of them. Like that's how you get that kind of sugary crunch on some scones, which who doesn't love that? I just happen to be out of raw sugar right now. So I'm just gonna make a simple powdered sugar glaze just to kind of drizzle on top of those and give them just a little bit more sweetness, because it's not a very sweet dough, and you'll see. So let's bake these. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my 3 cups of flour right into my food processor. And I've made these so many times like this. I've had like a small breakfast events where I've made like dozens and dozens of scones, and the food processor helps. So there is our 3 cups of flour. Now I'm going to go in with our 5 tablespoons of sugar. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I am the kind of cook that has to count out loud or else I lose my spot. And to that, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, I've got my food processor set up on the back counter. I'm just going to whiz these dry ingredients together real quick, and then I'm going to cut the butter in, and I'll show you how to just kind of pulse that until the butter is all cut in. So I'll see you at the back. All right, I've got my food processor put together, and I'm just really going to pulse that just a few times just to get those dry ingredients kind of incorporated. That's probably good. All right, and now I'm just adding those butter. I kind of cut them into little pats, both sticks, and so I'll get that lid on. And then we'll just give that a pulse. Keep pulsing it. All right, so I've got all of that pulsed up. I'm just going to go ahead and dump all of that into my bowl. And I've got my mat here. Make sure I get all that flour out, because we are going to mix this up, dump this on our mat, and then I'll show you how I just press it and cut it and get it ready for the oven. These are so easy to make. So I've got everything in there, and just making sure there's no large pieces of butter. That actually cut that butter very nicely into that flour. So much easier and quicker. So since this is going to come together very quickly after I add the cream, I'm going to go ahead and add my cranberries. That's 1 cup. And my white chips. I'm going to go ahead and add that now. And then once we begin mixing, that'll just get completely mixed in. So a cup of each, very simple. And then I'll just kind of take my hands and kind of incorporate those chips and cranberries. Now, a lot of times I'll use dried cherries as well, because I live in cherry country. And so dried cherries are everywhere up here. Everybody uses them for everything. It's a Michigan thing, or at least a northern Michigan thing. Okay, that's good. Now, we're just going to add our 1 1/4 cup of heavy cream, and just give that kind of like a quick dough whisk mix. And in we go. And I just, will just kind of squeeze and push until all that flour is incorporated in there. Not too much though. Like, you don't want to necessarily knead these. You just want to make sure all of that flour and heavy cream is incorporated into the scones, which, I mean, gosh, we're almost there. These are so easy. And for years, I don't know about you, but I always felt like scones were an intimidating thing to make. But turns out they're as simple as cookies, really. I mean, if you have a good recipe. And this is a good one. And I would say you could follow this base recipe and add a cup of, 2 cups of something to it. Like maybe even some cheddar and bacon, maybe, and leave out the sugar. Maybe some bacon and onions and cheddar. Just 2 cups of stuff. I love a good adaptable recipe. All right. She's good. All of that is incorporated. All right, I've got it all here on my mat with my flour. Now you can cut this in a couple different ways. I like to take this dough and cut this in half, and I'll show you why. You can totally do it as one. I like to do two cuts. Look at those beautiful cranberries. And then kind of make that into like a round ball, and then just begin to press down and push those out. You could totally use a rolling pin if you wanted to, but this dough is soft enough that you can just press it down by hand. Look at that beautiful little circle. I used to not like to bake, but I kind of had to get myself in the mode of baking because my clients who I was cooking for wanted baked goods. And I've actually found a real love for it. And this is one of those recipes that I love. Okay, we've got this in a nice circle that's about a 1/2 inch or so. I am going to cut these in 6 because I think that's like the perfect size. Now you could cut them in 8, which would make them a little smaller, kind of like mini scones. But trust me, the 6 I feel like is perfect with a cup of coffee. And that will give us a dozen scones total. So now I'm just going to get these on the pan and get our second batch cut. All right, now at this point is when I would add the just a little bit of heavy cream on top just to make that sugar stick. But I don't have that today, so we're going to do just a little glaze. And I just give them a little bit of room. You know, they don't need a ton of room. They're going to grow a little bit, but not so much that they're going to cook into each other. All right. Disc number 2. And our oven is ready. And we're ready to cut. So again, I'm going to go right down the middle. And then I'm going to cut each of those into 3. I have done this many times. All right, we've got our 6. Let's see if we can fit all of these together. All right, I've got everybody on the pan. And so now we're gonna bake these in a 400-degree oven for about 15 minutes. All right, friends, our scones are out of the oven. Now, I had a thought as I posted. I was sitting there waiting for them to cool right after I took them out of the oven. And I thought, what kind of glaze do I want to make? I thought, you know, and I have lots of fresh oranges. I just bought a big sack. So I think since these are cranberry white chocolate, why not do a little bit of an orange glaze? I mean, let's try it, right? So I am now just juicing, and let's see. I don't think we're gonna need, I think that's gonna be fine. So just 1 orange. We'll play it by ear. I don't have a measurement for that, but that's the juice of 1 orange. And start with a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. And I'm gonna make a mess. And we'll just add, and I'll just not dirty another. Boy, that smells good. I'll just keep adding, powdered sugar. I think I'm just gonna use a spoon. And just kind of give them just a light glaze. I have way more glaze than I need, but that is going to be so good. Sometimes that's just what happens, you know? You get an idea in the middle of a recipe, and you go with it. I mean, at least that's what I do. And sometimes things like this turn out really good. Of course, sometimes not so much. But I think this is a pretty safe gamble. Our cranberry white chocolate orange glazed scones. So now I'm gonna go ahead and let all that set up, and then we will give one of these a taste, which I am looking forward to. Friends, it is like 2 days later. I am a busy woman, and I am down to my last scone. I actually ended up taking most of these into the restaurant yesterday for all the morning crew, and they got rave reviews. I think someone even said they were the best scones they've ever had, so it's a good one. I've got one left, and this is my bite that I'm going to share with you, but I just wanted you to see. Look at how beautiful those scones are, and look at just that texture. Oh, they are buttery, and with that heavy cream, it is a very good texture. So I've got my cup of coffee. I'm just finishing. I am going to enjoy this scone. I'll give you a taste, and then I'm off to work for the day. Friends. You can't really see that glaze on the top. It kind of blended in with the scone itself, but it's there. That orange glaze that I made, it just kind of ended up coating the entire top. And it's interesting because we got into a conversation yesterday about the sugary crunchy top versus the glaze, and usually people like one or the other. I really like the sugary top, but I'm also not mad at the glaze. Specifically, this orange glaze is very tasty, paired with that cranberry. So I am going to finish this delicious scone. Friends, you should make these. They are so good, and I think you could freeze them and just kind of pull one out. I had to get rid of them so I didn't eat like a dozen scones all by myself. You know what I'm saying? So friends, thank you for all the love. Thank you for the support. I really, really, really appreciate you. I love seeing all of your sweet, kind comments, and it makes me feel connected. So keep them coming, and we will see you soon. Bye for now. So good.